So in today's video, I'm going to be giving you the 5 best ETFs that every single investor should have in their portfolios forever. And when it comes to investing, then one of the easiest ways of doing it is by investing into ETFs or exchange traded funds, which is basically a basket of stocks that you're investing into. And today, I'm going to be talking about the 5 absolute best ETFs out there. And in case you're new to the channel, then my name is Casper, and here we strictly talk about investing and personal finance. So if you do like that, then don't forget to subscribe. But let's get straight to the first one on my list. And here we have a value ETF. And that essentially means that this ETF here is only consisting of companies that is trading at a good value compared to their earnings, with a low and stable growth. And that could be companies like Procter & Gamble, JP Morgan, Johnson & Johnson, and so on. Basically companies with a very stable cash flow and a stable return. And the ETF that I'm talking about is a Vanguard ETF, and that is the Vanguard Value ETF, ticker symbol VTV. And if you invested $10,000 10 years ago into this one ETF here, then today you would be sitting on $26,349, and that is a pretty good return in 10 years. And VTV has during the last 10 years had an average annual return of 10%, and they have a very low expense ratio, sitting at just 0.04%, and that is very nice. And year to date, then they are up by 6%, and that is a pretty good performance as well. And when you're buying this ETF here, then you're basically getting 350 high quality companies within your portfolio. And that is companies like Broadcom, JP Morgan, Exxon, Johnson & Johnson, and many others. And the mistake that I've made when it comes to investing is only focusing on high growth sectors and ETFs. But even though high growth is really nice, then having something like VTV to fall back on when times are tough is really important, and it does reduce your losses during market downturns significantly. So even though it is not the most exciting ETF, then you should have it in your portfolio. So now that we've talked about value investments, then let's talk about something else, and we're going to be talking about dividends now. And I'm going to be giving you one of the most famous dividend ETFs out there. And if you have been watching my channel before, then you know exactly which one I'm talking about right now. And that is of course the Charles Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF, ticker symbol SCHD. And this one is the 3rd largest dividend ETF out there when looking at assets under management. And it does offer a very nice dividend yield sitting at 3.4%. And one of the reasons as to why this dividend ETF here is so popular amongst dividend investors is because they have been able to grow their dividends by 13% per year on average for the last 5 years in a row, and that is very impressive. So for a very low expense ratio of just 0.06%, well then you're basically getting access to 104 high quality dividend paying companies, including Broadcom, Abbey, Home Depot, Merck, Texas Instrument, and so on. And if you had invested $10,000 into this one ETF here 10 years ago, then today you would be sitting on $28,709. And that is a very nice return for a dividend ETF. SCHD is most likely the best option if you want to have stable growth while also getting high dividends. And the main reason as to why this is the best dividend ETF is not only because they have a stable growth or because they have a high dividend yield, but because they have been able to grow their dividends at 13% per year. That is very impressive, and in my opinion, then it is even more impressive than the high dividend yield. So after having talked about both value and dividend ETFs, then now it is time to talk about the best sector that the stock market has to offer, and that is of course information technology. And I'm gonna be giving you another Vanguard ETF, and that is the Vanguard Information Technology ETF, ticker symbol VGT. And it is the largest information technology ETF in the world when looking at assets under management. And they do have a very low expense ratio, sitting at just 0.10%. And if you had invested $10,000 into this one ETF here 10 years ago, then today you would be sitting on $62,893. And that return is absolutely insane. And that is almost 6 times your money back in only 10 years. And this is due to a really high 10-year average growth of 20.19%. And with this ETF here, then you're basically getting access to all of the best information technology companies there is, like Microsoft, Apple, Nvidia, Broadcom, AMD, and so on. And yes, past performance is no guarantee for future performance, but I do really think that tech is going to be one of the best performing sectors. Just think about something like AI, artificial intelligence, and all of the opportunities that this one technology does bring. It is basically gonna change so many things, and I just don't see how technology is not gonna be the best performing sector in the future as well. And I do think that you're missing out by not having technology in your portfolio. So now that we've talked about value, dividends and information technology ETFs, then let's talk a bit about a growth focused ETF. And this ETF right here is the 5th largest ETF in the entire world when looking at assets under management. And that is the Invesco QQQ ETF, ticker symbol QQQ. And this ETF is gonna give you access to the top 100 growth companies in the Nasdaq Composite Index. And this ETF is basically consisting of the absolute best performing tech related companies. So you basically have an ETF that doesn't just include the information technology sector, but also have the best companies in the communication sector and the consumer cyclical sector. And had you invested $10,000 into this one ETF here 10 years ago, then today you would be sitting on $52,875. And that is a really nice return. And that is an average yearly growth rate of 18.25%. And this fund has basically outperformed all of their competitors like the S&P 500, the Russian 1000 index, when looking at revenue, earnings and also dividends. And the expense ratio for this fund is sitting at 0.20%. And even though I do think that is a bit high, then I do also think that the returns of the fund is making up for it. So moving on to the last one on my list, and this one is the largest ETF in the world, and that is the Vanguard S&P 500 index, ticker symbol VOO. And this fund here does include the 500 largest publicly traded companies in the US, weighted by market cap. So you're basically only getting the absolute best companies in the US by investing into this fund here. And that includes companies like Microsoft, Apple, Nvidia, Amazon, Meta and so on. And this one is my personal favorite ETF because it does offer the best and the most optimized diversification of the entire stock market by only picking the absolute best companies. And if a company within this index is performing very bad, then eventually it does get replaced by another company. And that ensures that you always have the 500 best performing companies in the US by investing in this one ETF here. And had you invested $10,000 into this one ETF here 10 years ago, then today you would be sitting on $32,927, and that is a solid return. And that is an average annual return of 12.66% per year for the last 10 years, and that is very solid. And the expense ratio for this fund is sitting at 0.03%, and that is very nice. And these were basically the top 5 best ETFs that you can invest into. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about them. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel for more weekly content. See you guys in the next one.